All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to come chat with us, hear us out a little bit. What we have planned for today is more of an informative meeting, and you'll find out along the way kind of why that is. But really think of this as a proposal. This is a draft proposal that we're putting to you, people that we've identified in the network as leaders, people that are involved in regional networks and organizing others, and that are really crucial to us as we grow the network. As you may imagine, it's become increasingly difficult to interact with labs on a one-on-one basis, and so that's where I want to start. So why did we start this initiative? Why are we interested in the Fab Foundation Forum? So, as some of you may know, the Fab Foundation has three main kind of axes or kind of foundations that it stands on. Three legs that it stands on. One is a .com. That's how really the Fab Foundation gets funded, and that's through deployments, setting up labs for institutions that want to use our expertise to do that, the procurement services that we offer. We then have a series of projects that we do, a lot of them here in the US, working with corporations and designing programs and running programs for them, and then the donations. Then we have the educational kind of track, which is all of the courses that we do, all the programming that many of you are involved in, the Fab Academy, Fab Academy. We used to do the bio, hopefully that will be back. But we just started the boot camp, so we have a new offering now that we hope to continue doing. I see Yadu was on from the Super Fab Lab, so some of you may have heard we just did the first instructors boot camp in Kerala in India, and that was really fun, really successful, and we hope to continue doing it again. And then we have the .org. So in the .org, the kind of organizational side of the network, on the one hand, we have the Fab Foundation board, and that's Neil and a few other kind of hand-picked individuals that help steer the direction of the network. But that is a small group, and it's kind of closely knit. And then we have the FabX events. That's the real kind of opportunity that we all get to be in the same room, to talk to each other, and to think about what we see as a common vision or shared vision for the future of the network, right? And how we engage. Downside to that is that we only do it once a year, right? So we have this feeling of kind of being very, very in tune with others and being in the same place, getting this really exciting energy of being around like-minded people, and we make all these plans, and then it becomes increasingly difficult to keep that up throughout the year because the physical distance makes it so hard. So we really see the need for creating opportunities for the network to be in closer contact in an ongoing basis throughout the year, and not just during the FabX events. At the same time, we've seen the great success of some of the regional networks, or I would say success of all of them, but some in particular I think really stand out. I'm really impressed by, for instance, Fab Asia Network. They've been organizing their own conference on a yearly basis as well, and this is kind of what we need the type of thing that we need to be doing more and to be supporting more, to make sure that we are in kind of closer contact and really making the most out of being a network, right? Instead of just isolated labs. So really, this is where it fits in, is a need for better communication and organization throughout the network. And so on our end, there's also a little bit of a selfish, in some ways, interest, which is to make sure that we can help people better. So we get a lot of people coming to us, right? We in some ways are the face of the network, and when somebody wants to come in or someone has a problem, they turn to us. And so we get a myriad of questions constantly over email, people calling, trying to find out things about the network. And sometimes those are easy. Most times these are easy kind of questions to answer, but sometimes if we have people, let's say in Indonesia, coming to us and asking kind of very specific questions about, or letting us know that they want to open a Fab Lab, we can provide them some information, but we can't really provide the best information in all cases. So we end up being connectors more than the definitive, than the people that have the definitive answers. The only thing that the only reason why we can answer all of these questions is because we know you and we know who to ask those questions to, or how to put people in touch with you.
Yeah,
So
and
more and
if
more
I
we're
can
trying
add,
to shift our, yeah, go ahead, please.
yeah, if I can add, yeah, and basically it's kind of a recurrent issue that I would say every month or every month we receive around 10 requests regarding these issues that we have stated here in the slide. And it's basically has becoming like a recurring issue that we are like, okay, yeah, we can give some guidelines, but we're not really helping like locally in order to like follow up with what they're currently doing. And I would say the biggest issue from our side is that they go into a platform, they subscribe to the platform, and then they say, okay, now how do I get to it? Like, how do I connect to the network? And we're like, that's like our main issue, and that's why we need basically, or we are inviting you to explain you what's the issue and how do we target it. And basically, if you go to the next slide, Lou. Basically, this is what we do. Basically, this is how we respond today. We don't have a static, you would say a static strategy in which we can follow through the different issues. So we just pinpoint to everyone that we know. We send them an email, connect with that. And we know that many of these people that we basically give this information to don't have actually the capacity, or are like their emails are full of information, that this is not like their priority. So that's what we want to try to solve. So try to create like the correct workflow of actually creating network and having a solution to this currently problem, basically, I would say.
Right. So yeah, as you can see, kind of the way that we tackle things right now is a little bit ad hoc, right? It's really based on the personal relationships and connections that we've built. That's how we're able to kind of just direct traffic, basically, is what we're doing at this point. And so that has quite a few disadvantages. We're doing most things on a case-by-case basis, so we don't really have, like Norella was saying, protocols in place that allow us to simply kind of start a process that will automatically run and make sure that people get the information they need, or get to where they were trying to go. And at the same time, it turns us into the bottleneck. So if it's a really busy period, suddenly there is no one who has availability to answer questions as they come in, and that really frustrates people that are trying to join the network. We have centralized information, so we try our best to connect people, but at the same time, we're very aware that the information that we have is not always current or accurate. Like I said, we have a lot of time constraints, so Norella and me are the two people that have some time allocated to supporting the network in a kind of general way, right? We can allocate some, maybe a couple hours a week to pitching in and helping out with requests that come in through the network. But that's about it, and it runs out pretty quick when you see the volume of kind of requests that we get. And even when we do make those connections, then you're all also very busy people, and there's really no reason why you would allocate time out of your own accord to this task. And I guess part of what we're doing here today is try to convince you otherwise, to some extent. So one really good example, the first thing that we try to do in a centralized way when we started allocating time to supporting the network was think, okay, it's just the two of us. What can we do? How can we better understand what is going on out there in the network? And we did the census. We ran it twice. We did the first one in 2018 and the second one in 2019. And we never published those results. We have them, and we do want to share them, but they are in some ways mixed. First year that we ran, 2018, we had about 650 labs. At that time in FabLabs.io, we had about 1,500 labs registered. So I thought 650 was actually pretty good, more than we had expected, but still raises this question of what does this mean? How can we make, is this data definitive? Which data set do we believe? I believe that the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think that Fab Labs has a lot of FabLabs.io has a lot of labs that haven't been updated for some time, or planned labs, and that's a whole other conversation that we can have a different day. How we're trying to manage that and clear the data that we have on FabLabs.io to make sure that it makes sense and that it represents the reality. But the thing that really got to us was that the following year, 2019, we only got 500 labs to respond. So this clearly spoke to kind of a lack of engagement with this kind of community task that we put out there. It was really hard to compare data when the numbers change year to year, when we're getting more labs every year signed up, but at the same time less respondents. So it's just really hard to trust our own ability to reach everybody to ask the right questions. The sensation that we got from doing this was that many labs just didn't respond, right? And we had a section as well that was pertaining to kind of indicators, financial indicators of labs. And this is the sort of information that if you're trying to start a new lab, if you're a government trying to invest in labs, this is the kind of data that they really want, because they want to see the economic impact that all of these labs are having in the communities where they are. But people weren't willing to share that data with us. We made that section optional for a reason, because we knew that it was a touchy subject. But we're really surprised by how 90%, I would say around 90%, did not want to give that information, right?
Luciano, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, friend.
Yeah.
I have to say that I received this request for financial data, but I wasn't sure who was behind the Fab Forum. I mean, it was not clear who was asking. There is many people asking for all this data, and I don't think it was clear that you were asking for that. Like the Fab Foundation was behind that.
Yeah, and that's perfectly understandable. And I mean, even so, that was part of the problem, right? Communication is a big part of it. Who's behind this initiative? Even if it is the Fab Foundation, some people, I think, are still going to think, do I want to give the Fab Foundation that data? Some people will even be in an organization where they're not really allowed to give out their financial data, right? So all of those are possibilities that we fully understand. But there's real value in getting that data, even if it is in an anonymized way, right? That we don't link it back to anyone. If we can give funders, if we can give governments some positive data on the impact of Fab Labs, not only the impact for the Fab Lab itself, but for the community, right? I think that we're going to be in a much better position to continue to grow in the future. But it's very hard to do that on your own, right? It's very hard to do that on your own. It's very hard to communicate on your own. So another issue with what Fran mentioned is people didn't know who was behind this. And so communication is a really, really big part of it. We're trying to reach all of these people it's kind of like a root system, right? I feel like communication through the network really is like a root system. You have some wider channels that carry more data, but then there's a lot of people that are kind of on the edges and they're kind of barely connected. Their ping rate is really slow. So this is another thing that we identified from the census is our need to build a more robust communication system within the network. And then just wanted to bring this up, an interesting data. Most labs in 2019 still were not members of a regional network. So we really feel like this is the only way in which we're going to be able to continue to support is through the regional networks. And that's why our focus and our target for this call today and for Fab Foundation forums is those individuals that are linked to regional networks and to other initiatives, to other programs within the lab that bring people together under a specific um, theme. So this could be things like Fab Academy, those are kind of the obvious ones, but then you have all of those groups working, let's say, on MTM machines. Some of them are pretty well uh, knit together in terms of communication. They stay pretty close together because they're interested in the theme. There's also the assistive devices group, so people working with prosthesis and orthesis and all these things. There's a big community throughout the network, or several labs are collaborating on that topic. So really who we're hoping to engage with the Fab Foundation Forum initiative is all of these leaders that are already doing this work of connecting and communicating between several labs, either across a regional kind of area or just on a theme-based um, approach.
Yeah, so basically what we figured out there is that even though we want to be like engaged with regional networks and the job that you have been currently doing, like empowering labs and creating labs in your community and helping labs throughout your region, there's also this like not smaller, I would say, because they are still a big an important part of what the like the Fab Lab community is. So like we are going to differentiate them from regional networks that are the ones that are like currently like working for the region, and then we have like this global networks that are like Fab City and the textiles and assistive technologies and all that. Like we want them also to come into this conversation. That's why some of you like would say, why am I here? But it's basically because of that. Like it's our initiatives that are still like community based and that are like created worldwide. I would say it's not like specifically in one part of the world. We want to like kind of map them and group them as well in order to actually understand like who has had success and who has not during this process, like for us to understand it. And basically what we have come up to is with this is something that we have created. This is something that's new. We have tried in the past with the census. We figured out that the census was not the path to go. So basically we need to do one-on-one communication with you. And we are bringing like this first draft, we would say, of a methodology that we want to work with you together. This is something that if you don't agree or if you know a better way to do it, like we're welcome to hear you out. But we need to do this a participative process. We need you to basically engage with us and all together basically in order to build what actually works, because this is not the easiest way to do it, since we are like far away, we're online, it's in our own time, we're investing some time on it, so it's a little bit harder to do, I would say, but it's reachable. But it's only reachable if you actually engage and participate. So we have been like, basically what we wanted to create is not this, we know that Fab Lab regional networks around the world have been created like organically, and that's good. I think that's a nice way to say that humanity tends to group themselves, but we need to look professional. I think that's something that actually helps you build confidence on what you're trying to sell in the region or what you're trying to promote. So that's one of the things that we want to have, like your commitment, your professionalism. Some of us, like, we don't know exactly like what you do. Like we know that someone from around the world, I don't know, Ted is in charge of, I don't know, the regional network in Asia, but I don't know like what his background, what's his role, what's his expertise. Like getting to know us a little bit better can actually help us understand how we can move this forward. Defining metrics of success that can actually help build a more accurate and defined like statistics on how we do and how we should work. And the first thing that we want to start, and I think I started the other way around, but the first thing we want to start is defining common principles and practices. This is something that we have been working, if I'm going to like put it up now, we have been working over the last couple of months, I would say, in order to actually try to we are not the ones, like Luciano and I are not the ones that are going to bring up like, okay, we're going to do this. No, this is something, okay, what's the first step that we can start with? And since we are like into digital fabrication and all this digital world that it's new, it's not something that we have something to read and to follow, we need to create it ourselves. So, yeah, I would say that. I don't know if you have something to add.
Yeah, so we started thinking about how can we do this, right? Like Narelle said, this isn't our expertise. And coincidentally, you may remember if you were there this summer in Egypt, one of the speakers we had was a guy called John Havens from IEEE. And his talk was really interesting. So it really kind of had a lot of overlap with what we're trying to do here. So we had a couple, we had a chat with him there, and then we had a couple calls with him to figure out what we can learn from their experience. So IEEE is similar in that it's kind of a tech-centric global network of experts that try to come together to make sure that technology is kind of going in a direction that works for everyone and that no one gets kind of left behind. And so in that sense, we thought there was a lot of overlap, and his focus being on policy and how do you make sure that that the processes and protocols that IEEE has are equitable and that everyone is heard and that the communication between the group is really clear and functions. So we talked to him and we got kind of enough information to be dangerous, I think. And so that's why we're not coming to you today with a fully formed plan and assigning roles and tasks. That's not what we're trying to achieve here. What we're trying to achieve is just open the door and say we would love for all of you to come and join us and design this together. So we have some ideas, we have some direction, but we definitely want to be, the design of the participative process itself to be somewhat participative. Okay, we wanted to be that way from the beginning. So some of the things here have come up, the creating the clear and professional communication channels, inclusivity and representation. But I think that for me and for what I got across from John, the real core of this is defining common principles and practices. And so I think when we have a few ideas for our next session for when we get together, but we'll talk about that later. But that's really what we want to focus on in the beginning, is defining what we all share, what we all have in common, what are some of the goals that we share, so that we can all kind of feel good about putting in some time and dedicating some time to solving these problems together, because we already have the motivation to tackle those problems. We're already dealing with the consequences of not tackling those problems, right? And so we went through this ourselves, me and Norella, just to get a little bit of a sense of where we stand and to give you guys kind of some idea, some direction. But again, this is a proposal that we're making, and it's completely open to be kind of changed and influenced by having a more of a community process around it. So we came up with this mission statement, and it kind of became clear to us that we're talking about three separate objectives here. So the first part we could say is more focused on the communication side, and it reads, to facilitate communication and collaboration between regional networks, and by extension between Fab Labs and Fabbers around the world. Gather, compile, create, and distribute resources and data from the Fab Lab network that can help those looking to start new labs or to enhance the operations, sustainability, and fundraising capacity of existing labs. So a lot of this is focusing on the communication side of being in better in closer touch to each other on an ongoing basis, but also that idea of finding out what is the data that will be really useful for all of us to have, and then using kind of these regional networks to make sure that we can gather it in an efficient way. Second part is ensure best practices are disseminated across the network and to provide an organizational overlay that enables a distributed fabrication model to be put into practice. So this is, I tagged it as more of an organizational type thing. The real goal here is how can we make sure that we can work together better? And a lot of that is going to be figuring out what are some standards and protocols that right now really we don't have that many across labs. The concept of Fab Labs is that they are compatible and very similar to one another, but in practice, when it comes to the human side, I feel that's where the bigger differences are in how we work and how we do things. So trying to create a little bit of a culture that is shared among labs really is going to improve how we're able to work with each other. Now, this may sound kind of very kind of corporate, but it can be. I think that we can get bogged down in making this a very bureaucratic thing. That's not the objective at all. But I think just finding what is that kind of that minimum of bureaucracy that is actually going to boost us to actually be more efficient. But being very aware not to let that become the focus. That really isn't the focus. And then the last part is more of from the strategy point of view, to develop a unified strategy for promoting and communicating the work of the Fab Lab network, both internally and externally, enabling individual labs to identify themselves as members of a tightly knit international network of like-minded organizations with a shared vision and resources. So a lot of times when we go and talk to larger organizations, companies, governments, they're first of all really excited and really impressed about how many labs we have, right? Oh my God, there's 1,500 labs. That's amazing. But when we start trying to work with them, when we start trying to, let's say, do a project with a large company, and we say, yeah, we have locations all over the world. How can we work with you not as Fab Foundation as a centralized entity, but rather we want to do this project with you, tapping into 5 or 10 different Fab Labs from across the world. Well, then it becomes really, really weird for them because they say, well, we need to do a contract with one institution. We can't do it with, multiple small institutions. When it comes to the vendors, right? When we're trying to get better pricing from a vendor, we'll say, well, look at all these Fab Labs. We're purchasing a large quantity of products from you on a yearly basis. You should be giving us more discounts. Well, then it becomes, okay, so what is the name of the organization? How many machines have you bought from me? Well, really, we're not one, when it comes to a lot of other players to the open market, we're not seen as one organization. We're seen as all these little groups, somewhat loosely connected together. And so I really feel like if we were able to demonstrate more of a united front, more cohesion within the network, be it through being more connected or just through having a better strategy to communicating who the network is, who we are, and how we work together, I think that we could reap a lot of rewards and advantages when we talk to other organizations. So really changing this image of being a fractured network and starting to coalesce behind specific groups that can then negotiate or talk together to the outside world.
Yeah, and adding to that point, Luciano, like this is the question that raised a couple of days ago, that it's what's the difference between a Fab Lab and a makerspace? And we basically say that we are a network, that we are all communicated. We are, but we need to strengthen that belief that we have, that we are all like a family and that we all connect with each other. That's what we want to, with this initiative of the Fab Foundation forums, that's what we want to basically solidify, that nowadays people see us as like a different little groups that are around the world. Okay, no, let's see us as a whole, that we do create things together, that we are a network, and that we communicate. That's the most difficult part. Basically, communication part is what can basically solve some of the issues that we're currently having.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like most of us would agree that we are somewhat like a family. We're definitely a lot of friendships in the network, but I think that we also have to start looking at, from a professional point of view, are we an organization that other organizations can work with? And I think, in my experience, the answer would be no, most times, right? Most organizations would not want to work with us as an organization. They would try to find organizations within the network that they feel give them kind of the peace of mind or the ease of just working with and being in business with within that network, right? So again, up for debate. These are just kind of a starting point that we wanted to put out. And very quickly, I don't know if maybe now's a good time to kind of take a short break, and if there's any questions, to talk a little bit or maybe get some feedback from people. We have a few more slides. We are just aware of not making this too kind of heavy. And we can clarify and go back as well. So any questions, comments?
Yeah, Luciano, I think this thing you say about we are not a formal institution, especially Fab Labs, is a big issue. I mean, especially for us, for Fab Labs. We don't have a formal diploma for Fab Academy. We don't have a formal structure for Fab Labs in legal structures. So this is kind of a problem. Like if there is no a bigger organization like supporting us,
Yeah.
or like IAC or some things like this that are already organizations, it's very difficult to get anything from anyone.
Yeah, so part of what we're trying to do is, can we, through this Fab Foundation Forum initiative, kind of create a contact point that will allow the regional networks and the smaller labs to talk to companies on a different level. As institutions that are part of this network, that are supported by the Fab Foundation, and that the Fab Foundation can put kind of its name on the line in the name of this lab, right? Basically, how can we lend or provide some sort of backup, some sort of way to elevate the labs so that other groups can be more comfortable working with them through us or through our support or through us vouching for them.
Yeah, and that's why basically we want to start with the principles and practices, because we know we have like a downside to what are the principles and practices that we can promote to Fab Labs and to different organizations. So that's why we thought that was like the starting point of all of this, and that we cannot, like as Fab Foundation, bring like, hey, here's the manual that you can use and go ahead and do it. No, there's no written manual that you can follow. So, and even though there is something or some guidelines, they cannot be like replicated worldwide, because we only have one version of where Luciano has been, or where you, Frank, has gone to set up labs and different things, but we don't have the bigger picture of understanding what can be a common manual that everyone can use in order to actually have like all the inputs that can come up based on the region or the location you are in. So that's what we're trying to build upon, and that's why we think that this initiative is important, because we know that there's like some issues regarding how Fab Labs work worldwide, and we want to basically target that issue and have a solution for it. But we need like all of you. We can Luciano and I cannot do it as like a whole. We need all of your collaboration and support.
Yeah, this is a very interesting point that Super Sam mentioned. It's if we want to define like a formal network, in the past we talk about this
Beno, we hear you like in a like you're like super echo, and we cannot
Really
hear you
muffled.
so well. Yeah.
let me change switch
If you
my
can,
microphone, maybe now.
can you put it on the
No.
chat, Benno, maybe?
Yeah,
Just
because we
write it
hear you
on
not.
the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We'll have Benno write that in the chat, and we'll respond to him there. If there's anyone else in the meantime while that's going on, any other questions?
Yeah,
So
Cesar.
no,
Yogesh here.
One at a time.
you can speak.
Oh yes,
Yogesh?
you can go.
Yeah, so I was like many times the foundation they ask basically proposal to partner, and so many times it is not clear whether we can mention the Fab Foundation as a partner and what
Right.
will be the modality,
Right.
the terms and conditions. So I
Yeah.
think if we get clarity, then it can become the proposal will because I experienced this problem in at least few proposals, and there we could not. The foundation wants some letter or some kind of a MOU with the Fab Foundation. Like, okay, you are submitting a proposal, and since there was no clarity, then as you mentioned, like in between the lab, like for example, we get and some other lab, we enter into a collaboration, and then we submit a proposal. So it's basically a Fab Foundation coming into. Of course, they should have come over there, but since there was no clarity about how we can bring the Fab Foundation on the board, um, I think we need to think about that.
Okay. So I don't know if everybody got that. It cut up a little bit, but I think I understood the gist of it. So basically, uh, what I understood, Yogesh, was that you've in the past uh, tried to or wanted to work with the Fab Foundation when preparing a bid for a client, but it was unclear how to go about that. On the client side, it was clear that they wanted the Fab Foundation to be involved in some way, but it was just unclear how to go about doing that and what the details of kind of how that relationship would work, what those details would be. So I totally agree. This is one of the big things that we want to tackle here. How can we stop doing these things? Someone has a little bit of sound. Make sure that you're muted. We really can't continue doing everything on a case-by-case basis, and we really have to think about what is the protocol, how do we work together with labs to entrust them, right, with this seal of approval from the Fab Foundation that will allow them to go out and work with other organizations locally in a much better way, and to get more respect basically when talking to other institutions. And that's something that we really need to figure out. This is part of what Fab Foundation Forums was created to do. I think we'd really need to make sure that we involve everybody in because we are trying to design one system that should work for everyone. We really want to talk to you and engage with you and finding out in your country what would be the best way to go about doing that. Would you rather us kind of have an MOU with you or with your regional network? How would we go about doing this? So from the financial point of view, that's not really our concern. Our main concern, that's something that we want to provide at no cost as much as possible. We'll try to provide things at no cost. If you can help us design these protocols that will make it efficient for us to offer this with very little time investment from our side, then we can continue to do this for free. If not, we have to figure out ways of how can we pay for this, right?
Super. Can you hear me now, Super Luciano?
Yes. Yeah. I was looking
Super.
at
Just
the
to
chat
mention
to see
it.
if you witness.
Okay. Well, but just to mention, I think one important key to address the communication and census issues is the Fab Labs IO platform. Today, it's more like a repository of information, but I think a more interactive platform could be interesting to have real-time information of the network. And also, it will be interesting to open the platform, not only to see the information, also to create new applications. No, for example, inside this super platform, we could have, I don't know, many different support for the network. For example, we have a lot of people that are traveling around the world, but they need, I don't know, hosts, or they can go to teach something, etc. We can implement in this platform something like Airbnb Fab Lab or Fab Tinder, or any application that we want, we can put inside this platform. I think this is one interesting key. Another interesting thing, I think, is Fab Foundation Bootcamp. In terms of communication, the last Fab Foundation for Fab Academy was great, but I think it could be also a good strategy to integrate the coordinators. No? Also, we are working in Fab Day, no, as a strategy to integrate the network. And in the case of Latin America, more important than communication and projects issue, or before than that, it's what's the impact that we want to generate as a network, no? Because with that, we will determine the indicators, what are our indicators of success of network, no? And I think this is, well, some keys that I want to share with you. And in terms of what kind of organization do we have, following the question of Super Frank, I think we have two options, not top-down organization. That means Fab Foundation opening official branches in different countries. In the past, we talked with that with Cherry, and that is crazy, no? Because Fab Foundation have to pay for many different organizations in different countries. Or the other is bottom-up, no? It's more or less what we have today, no? It's different countries opening the Fab Labs, creating official organization locally, but integrated through platforms like Fab Labs IO.
To the next one, which is the goal. So going from the mission, right, which is a more generic kind of aspirational thing. We're seeding, right? Just look at this as seeding. These are some of the things that came to our mind, but really the work begins when you guys commit to kind of working with us on this on a little bit of an ongoing basis. And then we can add to this and make sure that that everyone is represented here. But the first one, Benno, is right there, providing a feedback loop for the development of community resources such as FabLabs.io. So we were working pretty hard last year with Fiore to implement a lot of the ideas that we came up with. Norella's done an amazing job creating a really fun roadmap for FabLabs.io. All of these new features that we want to implement, and that we also want your feedback on in terms of kind of what do we want to prioritize and what do we want to implement first, or how we want to go about doing some of these things. Unfortunately, that is now on a little bit of a standby until we figure out the transition from Fiore, but definitely this is going to be one of the key things where we really feel this group can have a lot of influence on, and it's a really good space for us to kind of take over and start thinking about what FabLabs.io needs to provide the community. Start looking at the needs of the community and modifying FabLabs.io to meet those, rather than just have FabLabs.io be something that continues to be developed in a bit of a vacuum. I'm not going to say secrecy or anything like that, but developed by some anonymous body, right? I think that there really needs to be more feedback when it comes to that. So
yeah, and I would add to that is that basically one of the things that why you are here is that not now in a middle future, but I would say in the longer future, what we're expecting from this group, and if you all agree to be part of, is that you actually engage and bring input into Fab Labs.io, because as of today, I would say, and I can say it out loud, it's a team of 3 people, and now we're 2. So it's not like we don't have like this huge team that can help us understand the whole community. And that's why it's important to understand the different needs of regional networks in order to implement that into the platform. We definitely would like to have, for example, the census inside of Fab Labs IO, and we want to have a lot of different things going on in Fab Labs IO. But as of today, we don't have the infrastructure. But if we do have at least the input in order to align all these things and then understand and map what we need and what we definitely think it's like the must be inside this sort of platform that we have, I think that can be like a really good path to go. So yeah, we do know that that's an issue. We want to work with that, and we want you also to work on that. It's not just us. And Cesar wanted to say something. Cesar, do you want to join now or do you
Yeah,
want to do it later? Okay.
yeah, I think it's all related. As I was listening to this, we have been running kind of a regional network for the last 3 years, and kind of the final, I don't know, the insight we got is that we need someone just to devote time to that. That needs to be kind of full time or part time, and because, like you said, most of us are absolutely busy all the time. It's quite complicated to get time from daily tasks just to collaborate. And I'd say that most of the vision, mission, goals are exactly the same. I mean, we are even in touch with national university, trying to work with national institutions so they don't have to deal with agreement with kind of a small fab labs. It's kind of the same. Well, it's at a smaller scale, but I think we are having kind of the same issues like FabLabs.io. Okay, we need to get this evolved. And in all conversations about FabLab.io, it's like, then we need developers. Then we need to pay someone to, even if we agree on what needs to be done, we need to figure out how to get the resources to get it done. It's the same as when you're talking about best practices. I know Fran, Luciano, you have been to so many Fab Labs setting that up. But in order to just sit down and try to create something that makes sense and something that at least sets the basic structure, it's like you need resources in terms of money or time or whatever you just to devote time to that. So I think one conversation that needs to be done eventually, I think, is how can we support this kind of initiative from the network? I mean, given that we are 1,500 labs, I think there is a chance to fund particular initiatives, not just for the. I think that like there are two parts here. One is how do I get the approval or the support from Fab Foundation to support my project, but for most of the other things, these things actually, I think they require some resources, and I think we have two options: either to locate the resources and try to allocate them to what we want to do, or to see in a realistic way if these things can be done just on our free time, and what is the return, and how do we support it in the long term.
Yeah, Cesar, basically we do have some of an idea
Listen.
regarding that. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we'll come to it.
so nice.
We'll come
Yeah.
to it on the next slide, Cesar. But yeah, totally agree with you. And we don't have the answer, right? But we do have some resources and some things that we're committing to this. And so we'll talk about it in the next slide. But I totally agree with you. What we have right now is just something to get us started. And I think one of the focuses should be how do we make sure that we continue to get resources either from the network or from partners from other institutions that want to support this specific initiative. I think that you're right that we need to fund the initiative and not just have it come out of the Fab Foundation pool, because that pool is very competitive, right? And we have to convince a lot of people that this is a worthy cause. And I think that in some ways this has a little bit of a political side to it, which is right now, a lot of things happen top down, and really what we're trying to do is make sure that the collective voices are being heard, right? So if we can come to decision makers with the support of all of you, right, and your endorsement saying, doing this is going to be of huge benefit to all of these labs, then again, we have more data that we can use to get more funding, right? So yeah, quickly the goals. I won't run through them. We're going to share the presentation. The video's recorded. You can see them. But most of the things, the three kind of axes that we have really is about creating better communication protocols between all of us here. Whoever has a microphone. Thank you. Making sure that we're in constant communication. Then the second part is how can we kind of start creating resources for labs? How can we create and document courses, workshops, boot camps in a way that would make it easy for someone who's starting a new lab to be able to start delivering content, to start having some programming that can generate some income for the lab. So I see Ilaria here today. So like Fab Kids, wouldn't it be great to kind of, I know that you guys have this, but it would be great to have a centralized location where we have all the different workshops that you can run in a Fab Lab, where you could get the documentation of how to do that in different languages, right? We could all help translate into our own languages and have a central repository of all of this content that we can freely share and help others. And make labs more sustainable. And at the same time, using these new communication channels, how can we gather more information about the network, getting more data that will then help us get more funding for labs and possibly for Fab Foundation Forum as well. And then the last part is the strategy side is how can we lend, right, the Fab Foundation's standing to some of the smaller labs so that they can get access to funding that maybe they're not getting right now, or the opportunity to work with organizations that now may be scared to work with them because they are just one small player, right? We want to be able to support them in that. But again, these are the three main areas of focus. We really rely on you guys. We really want to work with you guys to really nail these down. And so we have some resources. So Cesar, we thank you for bringing that up. We have some resources, some of which are available now, some of which I think will come down the road as we flush this out. So this time that we're putting in, me and Norella, Norella's part-time at the foundation, and she does other things as well, obviously. But I think Norella's time, once this grows, I think she could dedicate a reasonable amount of hours to this, to supporting this. I can also provide some hours as needed. I think if this is growing, then I can justify spending more time on this because we're getting results, right? Some of you may have seen tying into the third part of the mission and the goals there of kind of providing that backup from the Fab Foundation. We want to offer to all of the regional networks or the different initiatives, if they want to have an email at fabfoundation.org. So I think FabLat has already taken advantage of that. FabLat is now fablat@fabfoundation.org. If other regional networks would want to do that, we can offer that. If you'd rather not do that, then that's perfectly understandable and fine. We can also offer website hosting. So Fab Foundation has bunch of websites. We have a big GitLab account. So if you wanted to create a repository for your regional network or for your project, we can give you that free of charge. If you want to host your website on the GitLab there, we can offer you that free of charge as well. Neil is now switching everyone over to Zoom for Fab Academy. So Fab Foundation is also switching over to Zoom. We're going to have a channel on Zoom 24/7, like the MCU days where we're always connected 24/7. That's, I'm hoping, going to be a part of kind of Fab Foundation Forum to provide that again, that opportunity for everyone to be in touch. And then we're also going to have a meeting channel for the Fab Foundation Forum meetings and things like that through Zoom. and you can use as well for your meetings. We want to create a new section on our website where we list all the different organizations that are part of the Fab Foundation Forum, all the different regional networks, again, part of trying to kind of rub off some of the perceived image that the Fab Foundation may have on the other labs, and on these organizations, which we see more and more the regional networks as who the Fab Foundation is going to be working with more closely and interacting with more closely, as the network has become kind of too large for us to work with every lab on an individual basis. So really think that the future kind of communication in the network goes through these regional networks. And then we can also offer opportunities for labs that are interested in offering services to organizations in their regions for setting up new labs. So procurement, providing training, providing installations. This is something that we've been doing in a centralized way. Organizations come to us and they say they want to set up a Fab Lab in South Africa. Well, then we here at the Fab Foundation pretty much do everything, and we rely on experts like Fran, like myself, like Sibu, like others in the network, to then go to these places and set up these labs. But we really want to open this up for the regional networks and for the labs to start taking these on, and we can work together with you to do these. So if there's a lab in your region that wants to get set up, instead of working directly with the client, we would love to back up that Fab Lab or that regional network or that association, whoever it is, work with you to do some knowledge transfer, to teach you how we do the installations, to teach you how we do the trainings, to back you up when it comes time for you to write a contract with this institution. We would like to kind of be a part of that process, to kind of hand off and to do that knowledge transfer, so that we're also giving labs, kind of teaching them the ropes in some ways of how to do this, which hopefully will then provide some income to the lab, right, for doing these in future.
Yeah, and if you want, so that you can
No.
rest a little. Okay, so, and basically that's what's available now and what we can offer, like, basically right away. And basically we're also thinking about the future. Okay, what else can we bring up in order to solidify your commitment, in order to actually like be part of this initiative? And so right now we are some sort of like getting 1% out of every like training or every procurement that we make for creating labs. That is basically 1% that it's going to be designated to the network, or basically to the Fab Foundation Forum initiative, as to how can we help the network based on different things. Like, it's not going to be like a huge budget, but it's something that we can work on, and we can all decide like what's the best way to invest these resources that we are currently like recollecting. Basically, the other side would be like introduction to experts outside the network. It's important, like as we did like this consultancy with John Heavens from IEEE. It's important that we bring other people that are doing this in a different way, or that are doing this in a similar way but don't know how, and that maybe have more expertise on different topics, to bring them to the conversation. So it's not just us deciding that like, yeah, we need to do this or that, like getting actually input from the outside world, I would say, in order to actually bring new information or new ways on the know-how of doing this. Then there's the introduction to companies, governments, and other players, that I would say that's the most important like issue nowadays for labs, that they don't know how to approach, they don't have a solid thing to go with. And this will be, I would say, for now, it's more of a case by case, but we want to do this in a more decentralized way, and to have something to work with as a background information in order to actually do these approaches. And then we will finish up with like the visibility and presence and Fab events. Not only as of today, we have like the working group that I think has been going really well over the last couple of years regarding regional networks. We always expect less and more of you come and show up. So that's super nice to see that you're interested in understanding and knowing like the advantages that this grouping of different regional networks brings as a whole. But we can also think as a specific, for example, track or something to work on for the whole week, and like create content around the FabX event regarding regional networks. Maybe, for example, this idea that Benno brought up of the Fab Foundation Forum Bootcamp or something like that, similar to the Fab Academy instructors. Maybe we can have some sort of conversation around that and then create something that it's actually going to be worthwhile for the whole community. So as of today, I would say that we have been in contact with John Havens from Triple E. Then we have Steve Lambert, that's to be decided. We will definitely like to bring Joel Gershenfeld into the conversation, since he has been talking a little bit over the last couple of years about organizations and the importance of organizations. And it's something that Neil has brought up in different, I would say, talks that he has been doing over the last couple of years, that it's that we already have the training, like the technical part of Fab Labs, we know it, we know how that's done. But the organizational part is where we're missing. And that's what we need to basically strengthen, like to keep up the speed of how Fab Labs are growing worldwide and everything related. And we have been in contact, but not so much, with Kate, that she's here, by the way. I think so, because she has been working a lot with groups and related to Fab Cities and the DDMP project that brings up like this, all these different groups. And we will definitely like her to be part of those advisors in order to bring this input into the conversation.
That's right. Yeah. So I'll just add to that. So quickly some details. The participative budget is something that I'm really excited about. We came up with this a few months ago. So basically what we're doing is we're charging for every project that we do at the foundation. We're charging a 1% fee that we're just setting aside for now for this participative budget that I think is going to be really, like Cesar said, essential for us to be able to actually build whatever it is that we want to build. So it's something, it's a little bit of money maybe to get us started, but it's not a huge deal of money. I think as of right now we have about $8,000, $9,000, something like that. But it's money that hopefully is going to keep coming in, and I think there's also the potential for down the road, if you're interested, having other labs voluntarily join in, and if they want to start charging 1% in the things that they're doing, to revert back to the network, and that goes into this participative budget, then that's something that we would love to see happen. I'm not sure, definitely not going to be something that's that we demand, but I think it'll be in our own interest to do this, right, for all of us. So yeah. So what do we, and we're almost done here, we have 2 more slides and then we'll let you guys go. What do we expect from you though? What do we need from you to make this happen? So we're really struggling with what to demand. I think it's really important that there are some kind of responsibilities on the side of members. Without you, really, we can't do this. And the whole idea is that we're going to set up a system where we will somewhat depend on you. So we'll need to make sure that there's some level of commitment. But at the same time, we also don't want to kind of demand too much before we're actually getting any results. So we're foreseeing 2 possible roles, a more passive role and a more active role. So the passive role will just be kind of focusing on the communication side, making sure that you continue coming to the meetings, making sure that you're coming to the meetings and passing forward to your network all the information that you learned in the meetings, and also bringing news and bringing information from your network to our meetings. So basically this is going to be, we're thinking about proposing a monthly meeting. We'll talk about this next, but this is going to be a small number of hours, maybe 2 hours a month, something like that, just to make sure that you're up to, you're informed of everything that's going on in the network, all the different initiatives, and to make sure that the things happening in your network are being passed on to everyone else and everyone's aware of what's happening. I think that there's part of this is going to come down to figuring out what or decision-making protocols are and making sure that everyone's involved. Again, this is just a draft proposal. This is something that we're going to work on together. But one of the things we'll have to think about is how do we make decisions? Do we vote? How does this work? And so being a part of that is also important, that everyone is a part of that. Everyone has kind of a role to play in the decision-making process of this new organization that we're proposing here. And consistent engagement. So again, this is going to be about 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours a month of time dedication, and we really hope that all of you will continue to join us for that. And then we're also looking for those of you that are ready and willing to take on a little bit more of an active role, and that means everything that we described before. So that hour and a half, 2 hours a month for us to meet, but also dedicating a number of hours, and we can decide together what that means, what that is, if it's 5 hours, if it's 10 hours a month, to help us kind of develop some of these resources for the community that we all decide together need to happen, need to come into the world. Ideally, we would also like to have you be a little bit of a connector to the broader network. So if you're the leader of a regional network, if you're a leader of one of these interest groups within the network, then being a contact point for others that are trying to replicate what you did, people trying to start new regional networks, providing some support to that is something that we would really appreciate. And again, we can talk about the details of how we're going to do that and how we're going to gauge that and what is too much. We'll do that together. But more importantly, helping us kind of make these difficult decisions, helping us make sure that the Fab Foundation has its finger on the pulse of the network, right? We really would like a lot of feedback on kind of the direction in which the network is going. Help us identify some potential problems that you see down the road and help us build resources to avoid them. So that's pretty much what we had for today, is really putting out there kind of our sketch for what we see coming out of this. It's really based on engagement from you and from the other leaders of regional networks. So we're kind of in your hands. What we'll ask you to do is kind of think about it. We have a GitLab repository. We're going to put the presentation there. We're going to put all the info that we have currently on that repository and invite you to it. And we would like you to take, a couple weeks to think about this proposal. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to have a separate conversation about this. We can set up a call one-on-one. We can exchange emails. We would love to get your feedback during this time. And then once you've kind of figured out, if you want to take a more passive role, if you're willing to take an active role, then let's get back together. So and really start working on this in a little bit more of a structured way. So what we're thinking right now for the ongoing calls is to do it monthly. Is to keep it to about an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes if we need to. We would rather find a recurring date that works for everyone. So every third Tuesday at 9 a.m. Boston. That would be the best case scenario. I'm not sure that is going to work for everyone. I know that there's certain times that work better for some than for others. So I guess my question to you is, are there any kind of strong feelings as to how we should schedule this? Should we make sure that we have kind of one month we could do it at a certain time and the next month we could do it at a different time to make sure that other people can join? Or what feedback?
I think that the most important here is consistency. We need to be consistent in order to actually move forward. So what we were thinking, and if you were wrong, just let me know, is that we do it the first week of the month, or something like that. The first week of a month, every Tuesday, depending on the Tuesday that it's, or the Wednesday. No, Wednesday we cannot, but Tuesday, or maybe if you prefer another day, just let us know. But it's hard to keep, we have 30 people here on board, so that's super nice to see you all, that you take some time of your busy schedule to be in this meeting. But it's hard to get everyone happy with the times. So what we're proposing is the first week of every month, every Tuesday, and we will switch it. One day will be 9 a.m. The other one will be, I don't know, we all need to wake up early in order to, the Asia guys to be on board, or I don't know, maybe 7 a.m., depending on what can we figure out in order to switch it every day, every month. We are also Fab Foundation educators, 9 a.m. Boston.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, I don't know, thoughts.
Let us know. This is not something that we're imposing. If you do not agree, just let us know. But we will definitely would like to go out of this meeting understanding when the next meeting is going to be. That's something that.
We could do another doodle poll. That's another option.
Yeah, if you want to do a doodle poll, that worked really good. I would say all of you put their input, and basically the ones that got more response, that's what we went for. That's how it was done last time. So what do you say? So the doodle, or just keep the first week of every month? I don't know.
Let's do the doodle, but without the Thursday and Wednesday, because Fab Academy and this education. So don't put the times you already have things, and we can. I think it's for here in Brazil we did one time, one a month on the morning and one in the evening. So in the morning you get people from all around the world, but people that are working in labs, and the evening people that are interested in lab but they are not working in labs. So you get these two kinds of people. So I think the first of the month you can do in the morning, and the second month you can do in the evening.
The afternoon. Okay, nice. Okay, yeah. So we all agree. I will be sending around this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send the doodle again, and happy to understand. So I'll keep the dates basically Monday and Tuesday. I'd say it will be nice days to choose hours from.
Okay. So we'll do that next time, and then we're gonna. So that's gonna be early first week of March, right? We'll meet again in a month. So throughout this month, please think about kind of what we talked about. Feel free to reach out and send us kind of any follow-up questions. We can set up a call. Think about what role you see yourself playing in this, and then that's where we'll start for the next session. What we're thinking to do for these, to make sure that we're somewhat organized, is we're going to put an agenda up in the GitLab, and we'll start building the agenda really early on, a couple weeks in advance, so that you can also make suggestions and put in what you want to see us talk about, and so that we know what to expect when we get to the call. And then the last thing I'll mention is I thought this would be kind of fun
before you do that. Lou, before you do that, sorry to interrupt you. Just so you all know, the communication channel that we will be using is the GitLab. We have one of the last things Fiore did for me was creating this channel. So I really like that in order to be used for it. So we're going to use the forum. We have a forum GitLab. So there we will have issue trackers. We will have a README where we will create the agenda and start creating the content. Every one of you that have participated today in the session, and if you know of someone that can bring input to the conversation, I'm welcome to add them to there. I don't know how to add them. I'm new at GitLab. Sorry for that. But yeah, I'll send them the URL at least so you know where it is. No, this is.
No, we'll invite you. I'll do it, Nora. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Everyone will get invited to the GitLab.
Oh yeah, everyone will get invited. Okay, fine. Okay, yeah. Now you can do the challenge thing.
Okay, so yeah, I thought it might be kind of cool for us to contrast the experience that we had
The
during
census.
during the census. So in the next month, I really hope that you take on the challenge. If you run a regional network, then
Or a global one.
or an interest group, or whatever it is, your group of people in the network. Let's see if we can map these networks better than we could do with the census. So my idea is just to ask you to pass on to everyone in your network a request for them to send us an email to forum@fabfoundation.org with the name of their lab, the name of the regional network that they belong to, and just make sure you add ping challenge in the subject field. So then when we get back together, we can tally those up and we can compare your records of how many people belong to your network with how well the communication is flowing and how responsive your network is. We really want to start thinking about how do we measure the responsiveness of these regional networks and of the communication channels that we have in place. So we really want to see which network is the best connected network. So hopefully you will join us in doing this little experiment. I think it'll be useful to everyone. Any last kind of questions, comments for now?
Yeah. First, I didn't. The site that Norella gave, it's not found. So the link is not.
Which one?
Yeah,
The
the
link
site
Norella.
said, I don't know. Let me double check.
Okay. It's
Sorry.
404.
Let me check. Let me double check. Let
Well,
me see if I can at least find you.
Yeah. The first thing I think is amazing. I got together with Carol. I don't know if everybody knows us. We are the Institute Fab Lab Brazil, so we are an organization already, and also the Brazilian network. We had a couple of questions, but you kind of responded them on. I think one comment is that we already talked to an institution, it's Facens. They have programmers and they can help with fablabs.io, but they kept questioning us about funding because they said, oh, we can't do that for free. So we can put our logo or we have to have some money coming somewhere to sustain that. But we have those programmers there if you want to use them. The other thing, I think, is fablabs.io. We did with a couple of judges process a kit to put Fab Labs there, and there's something that we want to share with everybody. It's working very well. And another thing, I was wondering about old labs. And here in Brazil, I don't know if around the world is particularly bad. It's like, because we are not organized, they commit one time to fablabs.io, they get the approval, and they think they are Fab Labs forever. So we have a couple of labs that are really kind of annoying and didn't read anything from the last like 5 years, and they think they know what is a Fab Lab, and they pass that on. And that's really something that we struggle with, you know. So how can we? And I think we are going to have a lot of old Fab Labs because they already have a way to work. I don't know if they want to work like that.
I think the strategy for that, I think clearly the strategy for that is to, so let me explain why. If it's really hard right now for us to differentiate, right, which labs are still there, which ones aren't, because a lot of times even the email address that we have, there's no response on the other side. But at the same time, it's just for us to do the separation now of you're in, you're out, is going to be really contentious. So people are going to be mad. No matter what, people are going to be mad if we remove people. there's also other people who feel that if we remove, then that number is going to go down and it looks like the network is retracting. And that's also not a good look for us. So I think the overall strategy that most people that I've talked to agree with is instead of removing those labs, what we need to do is start verifying labs, right? So instead of going on the kind of on the negative side, let's start going on the positive side. Let's start saying these labs are verified and they get a special badge, right? That differentiates them on the map from other labs. And maybe, their logo is in color, and if your lab is not verified, it's black and white and, not as visible, doesn't pop out as much. So instead of taking things away, we want to start giving things to the labs that we know are working and that we know are verified and that we know are in contact with us. So to do that, though, we need to figure out how do we do this verifying. And so setting up that protocol is a big part of what we as a group in Fab Foundation Forum can be doing. Figuring out how we can verify these labs through the regional networks, and then figuring out what are the advantages that we want to give these verified labs as compared to the unverified labs, just to give them a motivation to then get verified themselves.
Yeah, that's very interesting because the labs that went to our process from the kit that we did with the judges and everything, because we asked for them from a presentation, a video, and everything. Now they want like a diploma for ours with our logo. This is the same thing. So I think it would be a nice idea to have them to print a diploma so they can put on the wall or something like that.
Yeah.
Like something physical, also.
Right. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah. So really, yeah, the main strategy is instead of focusing on the negative, let's focus on the positive and build more things and provide more things to attract people to join us rather than trying to push people away, right?
Yeah, and it would be nice if you, like for next meeting, if you have some ideas in order to work on, like write them into the agenda once I start creating the agenda so that we can understand, like, okay, let's give some time for Kenzo to talk and like start organizing so that we have time to discuss things, to inform things, and to actually work on things and solve an issue that's currently happening or something like that.
Right. And we have, I trust that in the beginning, we're a lot of our time for the first session or two is going to be focused on how do we work together, how do we structure our own kind of interactions, right? How do we define these roadmaps? I think that we can all pitch in ideas and say we should do this, we should do that. But first of all, we have to figure out what are the resources that we have. So figuring out who's committed to putting in a few hours a week, developing some of these protocols and these processes, who's just interested in remaining involved and in touch, which is also, very praiseworthy, and thank you for doing that part. And so once we figure that out, then we can start seeing, okay, what's our roadmap? What are the things that we want to tackle first? And so that we make sure that we're not just, we're really aware of making sure that this doesn't become just a space for venting and conversation. That is really necessary. And we want to have some time allocated to that, but we really want this to be a working group that's really, putting things out there, designing, putting documentation out there, and getting resources to the network. So we're going to have to figure out or the way that we work together to make sure that we don't get bogged down, right?
Anything else? Anyone wants to
Any
bring
last
something?
questions, comments?
Yeah, just send me your FabLabs.io user so that I can add you to the repository on the chat before you leave.
It's public now, Nore, so people can request directly.
Okay. Thank you, Lou.
It's public now. So people can request directly.
Okay, good.
Great. So then, but I think the best thing is we'll get together, debrief from this, and see what information you still need to get from us. And so by next week, you'll get an email with kind of tying up any loose ends. We'll do another doodle poll, and we'll get you all access to the repository and start seeding that with the information that we already have, and we'll take it from there. All right. If there's no other questions or comments from my part, thank you all so much for showing up, for listening to us. really hope that you are somewhat motivated to join us in this. Really, we're trying to do as much as we can to help you and to help others and to help the labs. And so really to do that to the fullest extent, we really need everyone's help. So thank you for considering.
Yeah, thank you for your time. And basically, we are encouraging you, empowering you, or whatever you want to call it, in order to actually build us together as a whole, not just as separate like entities, but as a whole, in order to actually like we want to build a better future regarding the spaces that we have, that it's Fab Labs, but how can we make it not only in the technical way, but also in the human aspect of it. So just so you take that input out and try to promote it. So thank you for your time, and I will be sending you some emails. We will be using now the GitLab, just so you know, you activate the notifications so you get like all the notifications on your email and you don't lose anything. Any thread that we start there. So thank you so much. So nice to see at least 30 people connected. That's so nice. We had I would say a database of around 40. So it was really good to see that most of you were interested, and hope that we have the same core team for next month. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
Okay.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.